I was challenged to a road rage confrontation on the way home today. The car behind me did not like that I was only going 10 kilometers per hour over the speed limit and had to go around me. At the red light, the passenger rolled down his window and started yelling at me to step out of the car. I have never been in a fight in my life. I was scared, so I drove off when the light turned green. I justify my decision to drive away because I have a lot to lose by getting hurt or hurting someone. However, I know I also acted out of fear. Now, that person is occupying space in my thoughts. Story 1. Escaping a dangerous situation without bodily injury should not affect your self-esteem. You may not know if the other person was armed with a weapon or had years of martial arts training. You should not risk your life over a road rage incident. Instead, consider reporting the situation if it occurs again. It's not worth fighting. Story 2. There are many stories of people becoming permanently disabled or killed due to unarmed fights. A punch to the wrong place or a fall on your head the wrong way can have severe consequences. Additionally, there is a very real risk of imprisonment and all the consequences that come with a felony charge. A true man tries to de-escalate a situation, and if that's impossible, he removes himself and the people he cares about from danger. Violence should always be the last resort. You overcame a challenge today. That voice in your head urging you to retaliate? That voice is dangerous, and you prevailed against it today. Story 3. You should not have walked away due to fear. You should have walked away because you are an adult and felt nothing but pity for that person. Story 4. Why would you risk your life because a stranger asked you to? Being concerned about your safety was the correct response. Leaving was the appropriate way to process that response. You did everything correctly. You avoided risking your health, your vehicle, your arrest record, tarnishing your good name, and compromising your conscience by winning. You only lost by participating in a fake contest. You did well. Story 5. This will pass. You ultimately made the right decision. There is no benefit to accepting that challenge. If you lose, you could get seriously hurt. If you win, you could end up in jail. It's not worth it. Story 6. Once you get older, you'll realize that these things don't matter. You're fighting with your ego. Let it go. You got away safely. That's all that matters. Fear is a healthy response. It's designed to keep us safe. Today, it worked. You're good. Story 7. The best fight or confrontation is the one that never happens. You did what I would have done. There is no shame in that. Story 8. Only fools pick fights with strangers. You passed the test. Congratulations. You drove away because you have something to lose, and that is the smart thing to do. There is nothing cowardly about it. Story 9. Paraphrasing Sun Tzu. The greatest victory is achieved without combat, as fighting harms soldiers and devastates nations. So, what did you hope to gain from the drive home, and did you receive it? Story 10. I practiced jiu-jitsu in college with the deadliest person I have ever met. One day, he told us, if you walk away from a fight before it starts, you've won. His uncle was a martial arts master who subdued 2 robbers in his store, but was fatally shot by a 3rd robber he didn't see. My friend understood what he was talking about. Story 11. Fear is normal and healthy. No sane or stable person actually likes the idea of getting into a fight, with the exception of activities like mixed martial arts, boxing, or martial arts, which I consider sports. Others have suggested taking up these sports, which is a good idea. Frankly, any contact sport that gets you accustomed to being up close and personal with another person is a positive step. I also suggest gaining a good understanding of your emotions before attempting any form of combat training. The last thing you need is to be in a situation where you act impulsively and start a fight out of fear, or worse, take it too far and cross the line into assault. Story 12. Road rage. I pulled into a Walmart parking lot, and of course, I had no idea what started it, nor did I know that this man was following me. When I parked, he drove by really slowly, glaring at me. I didn't know what he was up to, so I started walking into the store. It was late at night, and I was just going to get a couple of things. The next thing I knew, this man drove up to me, cursing at me. I tried to respond, but he kept yelling. I dismissed him without saying a word and walked into the store. I didn't look back and just wanted to get in, get out, and go home. I wasn't expecting anything else. He confronted me as I was walking to the register, telling me I was about to get an ass whipping. I still didn't know what angered him or why he was so furious with me. What was worse was that his wife and young kids were with him, and he was walking aggressively toward me. He was 6 feet 5 inches tall and weighed 280 pounds. I was sure that he could easily overpower my 5 feet 8 inches and 140-pound frame. I was so terrified that I partially soiled my pants. Voice breaking, I told him that I didn't want to fight and just wanted to leave. He threatened me several times as I slowly backed away from him and hurriedly left the store. Most humiliating was that my girlfriend, who was waiting in the car, saw it all. I usually carry a pistol with me at all times, but this time I had left it in the car. If I had it earlier, I don't know if the outcome would have been different, but I certainly learned not to leave it in my car again. This was 10 years ago, and I still think about it every day. The humiliation, the terror of being caught off guard and unprepared still haunt me, but I'm grateful that I walked away. Story 13. Take it as a sign of wisdom and restraint. Someone ready to fight while you walk away out of fear shows that you have thought through the emotional aspects. Let's say you confront him and engage in a fight. Either he wins and you end up hurt, or you win and he gets hurt, or both of you end up injured with no reward. Now, of course, one punch and someone hitting their head on the pavement can be fatal. Do you want to face a manslaughter charge and explain to a police officer, well, he taunted me, and I didn't want him to think I was a coward, so I fought him and he died? If you both throw punches and exchange blows, you might break your hand while he loses some teeth. Where is the reward in that? Consider what this person thinks of you. Do you care enough to risk your life, his health, and everything else? Remind yourself to fight for what is worth fighting for. This situation is not worth it. Story 14. Go to a boxing gym or another type of martial arts gym. Street fighting is unwise regardless of the circumstances, but there is a significant difference between walking away because I am incapable of violence, so it is my only real option, and walking away because there is no point in risking jail time by attacking someone ignorant. When you know how to fight, street fighting demonstrates nothing. Beating up a random person is equivalent to winning a chess game against someone who does not even know the rules. Story 15. Fear of a fight is a survival instinct. Survival is the most important game, far beyond a petty squabble with another person. Ask yourself, what is the point of potentially harming someone? Why put yourself at risk of harm when you could simply avoid it? Aside from pride or ego, there really isn't a valid point. You will likely never see that person again, and if you did, chances are they wouldn't recognize you anyway. Story 16. I'm a 6'6" ex-military man, and I can assure you, you did nothing wrong. I was raised in the inner city, and I know you can never be certain about what someone is carrying. I have personally walked away from many fights, not because I'm scared, but because I simply don't see the point. I will only fight if I am physically cornered with no way out or if someone I care about is attacked. I have seen with my own eyes a man over 6 feet tall provoking a shorter guy for no reason, and the shorter man shot him with a gun he had in his pocket, without ever pulling it out. Forget about the jerk. He's not worth your time. Trust me, anyone who lashes out at you in a road rage incident probably has a difficult life. Story 17. Always de-escalate if you can. You cannot take back a punch once it is thrown. They may be trying to provoke you into making the first move so they can claim self-defense when they act violently. They are not thinking about you, so you need to prioritize your own safety. It takes a stronger person to restrain themselves than to resort to fighting. Do not feel guilty about walking away. Vehicles can be dangerous and should not be treated lightly. People die every day in car accidents without any additional provocations. You do not need to contribute to the statistics. Story 18. You were smart. Your fear protected you from making a life-ruining mistake. The legal and financial consequences of fighting are too high for it to ever make sense. That being said, you do need to overcome this fear. Just knowing that you can handle a situation if it becomes dangerous has a significant impact on how you carry yourself in all aspects of your life. You are afraid of fights because they are unknown to you. I have been punched in the face a good number of times, and it is surprising how little it hurts. In my experience, your endorphins are so high during a fight that it's almost impossible to feel pain. You need to learn that fighting isn't that scary. Taking a year of mixed martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or boxing lessons will help you feel less scared next time. It truly works wonders for your sense of safety and confidence. Story 19. Let's say you fought that person and you won. What have you achieved? What have you proven? You've shown that you are better at fighting than someone you don't know and will likely never see again. What is that worth? Now, consider the other side of the coin. You could lose that fight and be badly hurt or killed. Or maybe you win, but the other person is badly hurt or killed. That can happen surprisingly easily. Now you could end up in a coffin, in the hospital, or in prison. So, on a risk-reward ratio, you are balancing the temporary pride of defeating a stranger versus the risk of death, injury, or imprisonment. Yes, it sounds like a no-brainer to me. Story 20. When I was 13, I ran away from a group of kids who were going to attack me. I literally just ran. By the time I was 17, I had earned my first black belt. My second was before I turned 30, and my third was when I was 42. I have studied Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, and Silat. I took firearms training and hand-to-hand knife skills. I never got over the shame of my first instinct being to run, so I vowed to never back down again. Every instructor I have ever had told me there is never a reason to fight and that I made the right choice. You made the right choice. My guilt has lingered for nearly 40 years. As I have thought about it, dwelled on it, and replayed it in my mind every time I am alone with my thoughts. Believe me, you do not want to carry it around like I do. You made the right choice. Story 21. Don't ever feel ashamed to walk away from a conflict. Our bodies are more fragile than we think and can be easily broken. Story 22. This video explains how to justify certain actions. There are individuals who may look for an excuse to harm others. Engaging in a fight over trivial matters or allowing someone to provoke you into a confrontation is unwise. When someone is killed in a senseless altercation, those at the funeral do not say, "He died over something completely pointless, but at least he wasn't cowardly." Your first response in any confrontation should always be de-escalation and evasion. Story 23. The best fight you will ever have is the one you avoid. I am well versed in multiple martial arts and carry certain tools to protect myself and my family. You will never see me in a fight unless it is a matter of life or death. It is not worth it. Story 24. I have been in fights and lost. In my last fight, I won after someone approached me on the street and attacked me. I tried to back off, but once he started hitting me, I fought back. When I walked away, he was lying on the ground and crying. I felt like a loser and a jerk. I do not want to hurt people. So win or lose, I do not want to fight. If that makes me look like a coward, I do not care. Do not let it worry you. You made the best choice. Fighting is not worth it. Story 25. There is no benefit in fighting someone. The best scenario is that you win and have a memorable experience. The worst scenario is that one of you either injures the other or accidentally causes significant damage. In my opinion, you can only lose in this situation, but if you walk away, at least you won't have to fear the consequences. Story 26. Congratulations on making the right choice. Your ego is not worth going to jail or worse. You can also be fairly certain that the loud person didn't know how to fight. Most people don't. As a trained fighter, I would never get into a street fight if I can avoid it. Yes, that includes running from it, and I am confident that I'm faster than some untrained loud person. Why? Because getting punched hurts. Falling on hard surfaces is painful. Getting hit with a blunt object from behind is worse. Getting shot or stabbed is even more dangerous. The best outcome for me is putting some untrained individual who never stood a chance in the hospital or possibly causing severe injury if they hit their head when falling. It's just not worth it. Consider going to a good mixed martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or boxing gym and start training. It will help with your ego. You will also realize that you have nothing to prove to some random loud person. They are loud because they believe they are better and have something to prove. You won't have anything to prove because you'll be sparring with people who are far beyond that individual skill level regularly. Story 27. I have black belts in judo and jiu-jitsu, and I have trained in several other martial arts. As long as no weapons are involved, I feel confident in my chances in a fight with almost anyone. However, I am afraid of going to jail. I am also concerned about permanently injuring or killing someone else. In my adult life, I have been invited to fight 3 different times. In each case, I declined because my wife and children need me at home, not sitting in jail. I also did not want the guilt of hurting someone weighing on my conscience. Unless it is a clear case of self-defense, most fights are no-win situations. You are either going to get hurt or you are going to jail. Perhaps both. There is no shame in avoiding that type of situation. Story 28. I started school late and failed a grade due to my teenage stubbornness regarding homework. From my second time through 7th grade until I graduated, I was 2 years ahead in age. I turned 16 at the end of my 8th grade year and had just turned 20 when I walked across the stage at graduation. Additionally, I have an unfortunate last name that contains a very obvious homophobic slur at the beginning, and I have always been a big guy both in height and size. I was an offensive and defensive lineman for my high school football team and the biggest lineman in my region. There were many worthless, tough guys in high school who tried to pick fights with me. At no point did I walk away from a fight out of fear. I walked away because I would be charged as an adult, because I knew the damage I could inflict, and because it simply wasn't worth the hassle. The only time I have ever laid a hand on another person was to defend someone else. I strongly believe that violence is never the answer unless it is the only option, which would be in defense of another person being subjected to violence or in self-defense against someone being violent toward you. I justify my choice to drive away because I have too much to lose by getting hurt or hurting someone. At the end of the day, I recognize that I also did it because I was scared. These are all valid reasons to avoid fighting. There is no reason to feel ashamed for not fighting, and anyone telling you otherwise is not a well-adjusted person. People who are willing to jump out of a vehicle in traffic to pick a fight are not well-adjusted individuals. If they didn't like the fact that you didn't break the law to their satisfaction, that's too bad. Personally, I would have taken great pleasure in watching these individuals lose their composure because I wasn't speeding. I would have rolled up the window and laughed as I drove away. Moving forward, get a dash cam and continue avoiding fights. Unless you are coming to someone's defense or defending yourself, fighting is never beneficial. Story 29. I believe there is a type of weakness in men who resort to physical confrontation in every disagreement. When they cannot engage in reasoned discussion, they resort to brute force, especially if they have size and strength on their side. While the idea of big and dumb may seem like a stereotype, it's true that everyone is compensating for something. Unless you would run and hide while your loved ones are being attacked, and it is reasonable to think you can intervene, perhaps if the attacker has a weapon, it is hard to know what to do. We all admire the idea of men willing to take a bullet for others. However, remember that you, too, are someone's child. That said, I believe everyone, especially men, experiences a significant boost in confidence when they know they can defend themselves. Consider hitting the gym or enrolling in self-defense or jiu-jitsu classes so that the next time you encounter an unreasonable person, you can walk away out of reason, not fear. Story 30. Getting past a fight is not just about being strong. It's about being smart. Personally, I find comfort in hugging my family, playing with my pets, and moving on without dwelling on the incident. Remember, you don't gain anything by fighting in the streets or trying to prove how tough you are. There's nothing to get past if you choose to live your life as if nothing happened. The confrontation you avoid is the real victory. Life is too short to waste on unnecessary conflicts. You don't need to fight to prove anything. Moreover, people are unpredictable out there. Just 2 weeks ago, there was a video of a man road raging with a gun who was shot. Now he can't hug his family, and he can't play with his pets. And for what? Story 31. Someone who is scared and doesn't know how to fight versus an angry person looking for a fight? You are never winning that fight. On the other hand, you got off without injury, avoided a trip to the hospital, and you didn't give him the satisfaction of defeating you. You won. Story 32. Who cares? I don't derive value or self-worth from fighting someone. I don't care if someone sees me as a coward. If I don't want to fight, I simply won't. Pointless violence is foolish, and those who engage in it are making a poor choice. Your decision shows that you are wiser than someone who wants to solve problems with physical aggression. Story 33. I don't necessarily call that fear. Why would I risk getting injured or, if you live in the United States, getting shot because someone else has untreated post-traumatic stress disorder? Call me names all you want. Words cannot hurt me. Scream or throw a tantrum. That's a personal problem. Just walk away and no one is being injured. It's not a matter of fear. It's a matter of normal brain function. As soon as you fight, you lose. I only fight if there is absolutely no way around it. But then it's no holding back. Story 34. Because even though the fear of getting injured is the biggest driver behind it, the fact that anyone wants to fight me for any reason is so hilarious that I just walk away laughing at the notion that something very trivial could rile someone up enough to want to fight. As if damaging the messenger somehow disproves whatever point that got them riled up in the first place. My masculinity isn't so fragile that it is tied to my ability to get injured or injure others. The only reason I would ever have to fight is if my life is under threat, and even then, I would probably just want them to get it over with. In summary, anyone who believes that fist fighting is a valid method to solve anything is someone whose opinion of me is irrelevant. Much like I wouldn't pay any mind if a 10-year-old called me a derogatory name and ran away laughing. In fact, the child would get a bigger apartment rent-free simply because it would be funny. Story 35. Never had that problem. You did the right thing regardless of fear. Don't fight unless you have to. Story 36. I have thrown many punches. Most feel bad afterward. Always remember, when you enter a street fight, there is no governing body. You might die today. That is reason enough to drive off when the light is green. You did the right thing. Story 37. It is not worth it. The only time it would be worth fighting someone is to protect myself or another person. Getting hurt or killed because someone is having a bad day is not worth it. Story 38. Believe in the things you can control. Engaging in a fight challenges your control. De-escalation is entirely within your control, but you cannot predict the outcome of a fight. Story 39. The only way to overcome the fear of fighting is to engage in many, specifically in a boxing gym. Street fights are unwise. A sudden impact to the head can change your life in an instant. Avoid confrontations whenever possible. But if necessary, a kick to the groin or a chokehold can be your best options to prevent causing serious harm. Story 40. Only immature individuals will argue over such trivial matters. You have demonstrated that you are an adult, not someone who behaves like a child and will constantly fail. Story 41. There is no unresolved business between you and the occupants of the other vehicle. What is to be gained from getting into a fight beyond feeding their negative ego? What you need to do is to not concern yourself too much with what random people think of you. As someone who is recovering from being a people pleaser, I understand this is easier said than done, but it still needs to be emphasized. Story 42. You made the right move. You never know how unstable someone is. You should only be fighting if it is absolutely necessary. I have walked away from a couple just because I didn't want to get arrested or cause a scene, and you still feel the same way. Story 43. Honestly, I can't deal with other people's aggression, and it bothers me for a while. However, not fighting is a choice I would make any day. I am prepared to fight, but only as a last resort, such as to protect loved ones from danger. I will always choose de-escalation over escalation. This is not a sign of weakness. It is simply common sense and makes the world a slightly better place. Story 44. It sounds like the only thing that was hurt is your pride. There is nothing to be ashamed of. You made it home safely, and your life is back to normal. What is to be gained from getting into a fight over road rage? Story 45. We are often raised to believe that part of being a man involves being willing to fight anyone at a moment's notice. This belief is misguided. As a teenager, I once got into a fight at a nightclub with a fellow student. In that moment, I lost control and let anger take over. I wanted to harm him. I only stopped when several people pulled me away. I have reflected a lot on that incident. What drove me to that point was not bravery. It was foolishness, lack of experience, and poor self-control. It frightened me how quickly I was willing to engage in something reckless. I worked hard to understand why it happened and how to prevent it from happening again, and it never has. Fear is a natural response. Everyone feels it. It is your instinct urging you not to engage in dangerous behavior that could hurt you or someone else. Heeding that instinct is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of intelligence. There are no positive outcomes from getting into a fight with a random stranger over trivial matters. Story 46. I have nearly 20 years of martial arts experience. I am 6 feet 2 inches tall, weigh 210 pounds, and have competed at a national level in boxing and powerlifting, so I am not small or inexperienced. The best piece of advice I ever received from my instructors is that the most effective way to win a fight is to walk away. Even as an experienced fighter, I am still a normal person with vulnerabilities. The other person might have a friend in the car or a knife or a wrench. You only have to take one coward's punch to the head, one hit to the knees, or any other soft spots that can hurt or cripple you for the rest of your life. If you must stand and fight, it should be to protect your own life or the lives of your loved ones as a last resort. There is almost nothing as foolish as losing your life or livelihood because someone at the traffic lights wanted to start a fight. Story 47. The day it allowed someone to occupy my thoughts like that is the day I first started feeling like I'm not a man. Throw down? I'm not in the Wild West. Story 48. That is your ego acting up. You have to work through that fear. If that means learning how to fight and acquiring the skills to know you can hurt someone but choosing not to, then that is what it looks like. Alternatively, you can consider it from a maturity standpoint, which is easier. How unfortunate is your life that you feel the need to fight some random stranger in the middle of traffic? Fear is not going away, ever. Even the most trained individuals still experience a healthy amount of fear, caution, and worry. They are human too. The difference lies in recognizing the emotion when it occurs and consciously choosing your actions. Bravery exists only when the situation is fearful. Otherwise, we would not have brave individuals. Story 49. It is better to walk away from a fight than to fight and not walk away. Defending a loved one from a credible threat is different. I would give my life for them. If I am in a car where I can drive away safely from danger, I will take myself and my ego away every time. You made the right choice, and you did it with rational and logical thought about the potential consequences. Story 50. It is better to walk away on your own than to be carried away. Usually, people who want to start fights like that have a weapon or something similar. Story 51. Fighting is never worth it, especially in the situation you were in. You could end up being sued, in jail, seriously injured, or seriously injuring another person. Be the bigger person and walk away. Story 52. There is nothing noble or admirable about being in a fight. I have been in a few, and even the winner will walk away hurt in some way. Resolve differences with words. You cannot communicate effectively with a fist. Story 53. Getting into a fight is one of the most foolish things you could do in your life. You have no idea what could happen. The other person could have a knife or a gun, and even if they don't, anything could happen. You could sustain a life-altering injury, face imprisonment, or be convicted of a crime. Let those who want to fight take the risk of ruining their lives. There's a reason society has become less violent over time. We understand the costs and have better things to do. Story 54. It is not worth it. People get shot on the side of the road in these situations. If your confidence or pride feels hurt, join a boxing or mixed martial arts gym. I assure you, once you have proven yourself to yourself, issues like this will bother you much less. Story 55. The only way to win a road rage incident is to walk away. Winning in such a situation doesn't provide any real victory. It's merely a measurement of who lost less. That person will eventually encounter someone more formidable. Story 56. There is a good chance that, if the police get involved, you would get in trouble as well. Do not worry about this person. The art of war discusses avoiding conflict whenever possible. Story 57. Most people who have received training in martial arts will suggest running first and fighting as a last option. A throw or head kick can permanently paralyze you, and that is not a risk you want to take over a random person. Remember, a street fight has no rules, so there is nothing stopping a thumb from fully penetrating your eye socket or a knife from severing an artery. Story 58. I have no interest in simplistic solutions to conflict. I will argue and stand up for myself verbally, but if someone threatens actual violence, I will call the police. My masculinity is not defined by aggression. Who holds more power, the brute or the man whom the brutes protect? Story 59. I have been involved in a few fights. None were started by me, and I didn't win any because I never tried to win due to fear. However, none of them even lasted that long because I was not reflecting anger back at the other individuals. I used to let it bother me for a while, but now that I am older and a dad, I am confident that I made the right choices. Enjoy your life, brother, and be glad you don't suffer from irrational anger when driving your car. Story 60. I will give you the same advice I gave friends who are scared of fights or situations that seem confrontational. Usually, they feel frightened when you take them up on their offer. It is bravado, so there is nothing to be afraid of. Of course, avoiding confrontations when possible is the healthier option. If you are already in a fight, then focus on the situation, not the fear. Feeling afraid or experiencing fear is natural. Just never let fear control you. Additionally, don't try to avoid thinking about it. The more you attempt to forget something, the more it occupies your thoughts. You may feel some embarrassment from experiencing fear and try to forget it. Resist that urge and remember that there is no shame in being afraid. Fear is a survival instinct. If someone else thinks negatively about you for being afraid, that is their problem, not yours, so do not waste time and energy on them. If you want to overcome your fear, analyze the reasons behind it and consider what can be done to prevent it in the future. Take my advice with a grain of salt, though, as everyone is different, so find what works best for you. Story 61. In your idea of masculinity, whenever someone wants to fight, you should be ready to engage. That is almost never the case. If you feel a certain way due to fear, that is valid, but fear exists for a reason. There are many more reasons not to fight than there are to engage in conflict. Story 62. Looking at these comments, who would have known the vast majority of Reddit commenters were bold and impressive individuals? Good old internet. Story 63. Stop worrying about trivial matters. Also, stay in the correct lane if you're not going to match the speed of traffic. Story 64. Adults do not fight. They sue instead. You can sue someone for physically assaulting you. There is nothing more pathetic than adult males behaving like 14-year-olds. Story 65. This isn't being scared. This is being smart. Walking into a fight outside of a cage or ring with full knowledge that there will be a fight is one of the most unwise things you can do. The first rule of a fight is to get out of there for a reason. All it takes is a bad fall and you could be seriously injured or worse. Don't engage with people like that, and be prepared in case they escalate the situation. Story 66. I have been in several fights, and feeling scared is completely normal unless you are a complete psychopath. I do not enjoy fighting, and I haven't been in a fight in a long time. It is always best to avoid one at all costs. Fighting is not cool. It is not brave, and it can land you in jail or worse with a bullet or stab wound. I have a friend who got stabbed in a street fight after leaving a bar. It happens. The people who genuinely enjoy fighting and seek it out are psychopaths. That behavior is not normal, and feeling fear is completely natural, even for the toughest among us. I consider myself relatively tough compared to the average person, but I am always afraid of getting hurt. I experience that adrenaline rush where I shake and my heart rate skyrockets. Do not feel bad. You did what nearly all men would do. Story 67. Fear and self-preservation guide my actions. I prioritize avoiding arrest, even if I am not the aggressor. However, if I am defending someone who cannot defend themselves, that would be a different situation, though it has never arisen. Story 68. Violence belongs in movies and video games, not real life. People like him have low intelligence and probably belong in prison. Story 69, you did the right thing. I was in a similar, though not the same, situation last year. It stays in the mind for a while, but it is hard to see the bigger picture while you are in the middle of it. 10 over the speed limit is a sad reason to get into a fight. The other person is unable to control their emotions. Story 70. You did the right thing by considering calling the police. I would tell him to take a step back. But I live in Florida and carry a 9mm firearm. I strive to be polite, as do others. Story 71. I don't fight people I think I can easily defeat. You never know who might pull a knife or even bite you. And if you win, the police are called, and you have to explain that you were defending yourself. You don't receive a trophy, and no one is going to praise you. The key is understanding when to fight. There are times when you may feel confident in your ability to win, but you should always be prepared for violence and to win at any cost, though those situations are rare. Story 72. I saw a video of a man killed due to road rage the other day. I am also scared of fighting and violent confrontation. However, when it comes to my wife, mother, and children, that fear goes away. I find comfort in knowing that when it matters for those I care about, I can set aside that fear. It is normal and wise to be scared in situations like that. There are many dangerous people in the world who feel they have nothing to live for and nothing to lose. You are clearly not one of those people, and that's okay. Story 73. The first thing I learned in self-defense classes was to de-escalate and walk away. Read The Art of War. Story 74. As someone who has fought a lot, I find it foolish. The confidence gained from physical altercations is not worth the struggle to obtain it. I had a very violent childhood and was technically a professional boxer, with a record of 3 wins and no losses. I fought at a casino and had a record of 65 wins and 3 losses in amateur bouts. I got into many fights. The best form of self-defense is being able to run away effectively. If you're genuinely concerned about missing out on an experience, consider trying out a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym near you and rolling with others. It's like getting good at something that is ultimately harmful. When you become proficient, you reach a point where you realize that it's best for everyone to avoid such behavior altogether. Hurting others is not admirable. Nobody thinks it's impressive to be fearless. Nobody views flexing or intimidating others as cool. Most people who can actually fight choose not to. I have been both stabbed and shot, and I carry stories and scars as reminders. You have your own stories too. Story 75. Unless they are a very wealthy person who will pay me off, it is not worth it. I have been in some really scary situations that I talked my way out of, and it was always worth it. Some people are unpredictable. Story 76. Is walking away from fights because you aren't a fool acceptable? Choosing to avoid conflict is like choosing to be a rational individual. Congratulations on being a rational individual. Story 77. The person who did all that is immature and inconsiderate. A man should risk his life for something more significant than a slightly slower moving car. People are unpredictable these days and are often looking for an excuse to act recklessly. You made the right decision. That individual got lucky today but may face serious consequences tomorrow. Story 78. Convert the experience to one of pride, knowing that you did not waste your time and are a better person for not engaging in any kind of response. Do not let a challenge to your self-confidence or self-esteem bring you down. We are men, but we are also human. If you acted within the law and honestly, then that other person is just someone who might lash out at others for minor issues. Do not take it personally. Story 79. From my perspective, there is nothing to overcome. I would simply feel relieved for avoiding a dangerous situation unharmed. There is no benefit or incentive to engage in a fight in this context, so why bother? In the best-case scenario, you might injure someone and not get arrested, but it is not worth the time, effort, or risk. Story 80. If I am not angry enough to want to fight, I am not going to fight. But if someone gets me on a bad day, they better watch out. Story 81. You are mature and wise. While this other individual has serious emotional problems, be glad you got away. He is not worth it. You have shown that you possess more common sense than that individual. Story 82. I have been in more than my share of fights. If you can walk away without fighting, you have already won. You can physically win the fight and break your wrist or knock the person down, and they could actually die. There are no winners in a fight over stupid things. Story 83. Remember my Sun Tzu. Know myself, know my enemy. Never let him pick the place of battle unless I trick him into thinking he chose it. If your ego can't just walk away, offer to fight him at the nearest police station to ensure everyone is safe, or challenge him to a fight at a dojo. The odds are he will just drive away. Story 84. Well, what's the alternative? You both get out of your cars, which further disrupts traffic. One of you or both may be injured or potentially killed. The police are called, and one or both of you could face charges. Who is winning in this situation? No one. Let the other driver get mad. Who cares? The point of driving is to reach your destination safely. You won't achieve that if you stop to confront everyone who frustrates you. Story 85. A fight can and should always be avoided unless the other person has already started assaulting you, in which case you should fight back and give at least as good as you get. Until someone actually attacks you, walking away is always the better option. Story 86. I have never been in a fight since becoming an adult. I will always avoid any type of fight unless someone I care about is in danger. There are too many unpredictable people in this world. All it takes is for someone to remember where you live or to hit you unexpectedly. Also, don't underestimate yourself. In every person, there is a part that is built for fighting. You were not as scared as you think you were. You were scared of the unknown, not of getting into a physical altercation. Remember that. Story 87. Fear is normal, and most of the time, people will only try to fight others they think they can beat. Learning mixed martial arts or boxing is a great way to build confidence. It will also discourage you from engaging in fights, as you never know what someone else is capable of. The benefit is that if you need to use your skills, you can, as most people cannot fight and act based on emotions. Story 88. You made the right choice not to engage with that person. I understand how you feel. A similar situation happened to me in high school. I backed down from a fight in public and felt embarrassed. I was never bullied, but I got a taste of it that day, which frustrated and scared me because I felt like I was losing control. I had to make a lot of arrangements, but eventually, I joined a boxing gym. It wasn't easy, but it was definitely worth it. I still practice, and now I know that if I ever get into a fight, I have a better chance of controlling the situation so that no one gets hurt. It's always best to disengage. So when I back down now, it isn't from a place of fear, but more like, that person had no idea what could have happened. Story 89. Any fight I have engaged in has only made my life worse afterward. I have been beaten a few times, gone to jail, paid some fines, worried that the other person would not wake up, and watched my back for 3 years waiting to get attacked. Story 90. Aggressive individuals like that should leave you feeling grateful that your life isn't that miserable, not ashamed for being afraid. Story 91. I have been physically weak since birth, and I do not enjoy fighting. Additionally, I am unable to work out. Story 92. We are vulnerable and frightened beings. We evolved for a different environment than the one we experience today. You acted in a manner appropriate for a modern human. Unless you were planning on causing harm to that individual and possibly taking his family, you ignored the instinct that urged you to avoid confrontation. Victory is yours. Story 93. I was in the military and practiced martial arts while growing up. I continued my training and worked in intelligence support with special forces teams. I personally enjoy martial arts. I prefer to run away or defuse every fight possible because I do not want to die, deal with the police, go to the hospital, or experience a loss or a win. I cannot assess whether the other person has a knife, gun, better training, or friends, and I know they will likely fight dirty. If it were a tournament style with a referee and a point system where we could leave as friends, I would be open to that. Story 94. People who start fights are misguided. Observe him strut around with aggression and enjoy the show while the light is red, keeping a watchful eye in case he breaks a window. Then proceed on your way when the light turns green. Story 95. That is ego talking. There is no reason to engage in a physical fight over something that can easily be discussed. Those who resort to violence are too foolish and ignorant to know better. I feel pity for them, just as we feel sympathy for zoo animals confined to small cages because they are not at the top of the food chain. We are at the top because of our intelligence, not our strength. If you must fight, do so to defend someone and aim to incapacitate, not to maim or kill. Men were protectors first and hunters second. Story 96. Diverting from a road rage incident does not affect my self-esteem, nor does it imply that I am weak. Story 97. It depends on how the fight starts. If someone provokes me to hit them, I won't because I know they will blame me for starting it. Otherwise, it's fair game, typically after they hit me first. However, I often find it's better to talk it down because it's not worth engaging in conflict. Avoid getting into fights if you don't need to. Story 98. You should only engage in a fight for something you feel strongly about, where you are willing to die or kill the other person or both as acceptable outcomes. If you are not prepared to kill or die for it, you do not care enough for fighting to be justified. Story 99. I remind myself that a stranger is not worth what I have worked hard for. I have been to jail and it is unpleasant. The smells, the food is terrible, and you are treated poorly. Since then, I have cleaned my record, finished college, and secured a good job. I smile and wave at them if they have an issue. Story 100. I would have driven away too. Avoid pointless arguments like that. Don't feel bad about steering clear of a situation where no one wins. Story 101. It's a good idea to avoid senseless fights. One misconception about fighting is the belief in an underlying code of honor. Once the fight starts, there are no rules or referees, and there is no time limit. That's the worst part, as there is not a good way to end it. Fear is normal and useful. I recommend starting boxing or another sparring sport to learn how to control it if necessary. Such encounters happen, and from experience, it's usually those with personal issues who want to fight, making it more of a reason to pity the person rather than fear them. Road regulations exist for a reason. Story 102. I reflect on all the people who have lost their lives within seconds of making one bad decision. Call me whatever you want. I will be the one waking up tomorrow without a traumatic brain injury and still managing to take care of myself without assistance. It is easy to find multiple stories of people who have either lost their lives or were never the same after incidents like this. Story 103. I have actively worked to move away from being the person who allows himself to be provoked into a fight. I have put in a great deal of effort to address my anger issues. I admire your ability to walk away. It is neither cool nor tough to engage in a fight. The only acceptable reason to fight is to defend yourself or someone else from an unavoidable attack. I assure you, if you were truly motivated, you would fight harder than you realize. Story 104. Street fights are not worth it. There is no honor in them, and they usually end with someone going to prison, the hospital, or the morgue. Why bother risking it? No one will be singing tales about your great battle of street rage. You will likely just end up with a criminal record or incur brain damage. Story 105. You would have been unwise to get out of your car and confront someone who is angry because you drove too slowly. That confrontation would have been entirely on their terms. It is not a fight for honor or anything significant. I would have done exactly what you did, but I would have been laughing at that person in the rearview mirror. Story 106. When you were afraid, you still acted wisely. Getting cut off in traffic is not a good reason to fight or possibly jeopardize your life. As someone knowledgeable about fighting, I can say that the more you learn about it, the more you realize how little is truly worth fighting over. Simply walking away is better in about 98% of situations. Knowing nothing else, I can confidently say the guy was foolish. He was in such a hurry but willing to stop and confront a total stranger. You could have been the most dangerous person he ever met. You could have had a firearm. He was ready to risk his life over something trivial. He was an absolute fool. Being ready to escalate a situation is a misguided notion of bravery. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.